Villains. They're often the best parts of their movies, and that goes doubly for animated villains, who have often been previously regarded as the best parts of their movie. And Disney is one of those companies that has given us some of the greatest animated villains. Villains such as Scar, Ursula, and Hook are famous for being some of the best parts of their movies. But still, despite their greatness, we are not talking about those characters today. Instead, we're talking about the best and the worst of Disney's surprise villains, or otherwise known as twist villains, or again, otherwise known as some of the worst parts of their movies. But don't worry, because we'll get to that in a minute. But still, before I jump right into it, I want to preference this video by saying that I have assembled 10 of Disney's surprise villains, and I have ranked them all from worst to best. And really, my hope with this video is to show you what goes into making a good surprise villain, and what goes into making a bad surprise villain. Unfortunately, there's no way I can put this off any further, so let's jump right in with the worst that Disney has to offer.
That was his mistake!
You know, as a community, I think the internet owes a great debt to Shafe Rillis, because honestly, I really do think that Shafe has been the only one to do anything of note with this character. Robert Callahan, as he's presented in Big Hero 6, is one of the worst villains I've ever seen. But thankfully, Shafe found a way to take this boring character and actually turn him into something. With, of course, that something being a massive meme. Which for a character like Robert Callahan, I think is somewhat fitting. Really, the way that this character is portrayed in his movie is basically a meme in of itself. Seriously, this guy just appears once at the beginning of the movie, and then he fucks off for the majority of the story until the very end when the plot decides it needs him again, and he's automatically become the villain. Like, seriously, Anakin Skywalker had a more convincing turn in the prequel movies. And really, my biggest problem with this character is just the writing. Because it doesn't feel like anything has been done to actually write this character's turn in a natural or convincing way. Instead, it just gets to a point where the plot feels like it needs a villain, and so it picks one guy at random. Really, if anybody ever needed a great example for how to not write a surprise villain, this would be it.
I'll let you live it for free and I don't even charge you rent.
The fact that Wish is this bad is something that genuinely depresses me every time I think about it. Oh my god, there are so many terrible characters on this list. King Magnifico. He's just as terrible as Robert Callahan. But hey, this one's even worse somehow, because guess what? He's also got his own villain song. And it's the worst villain song I've ever heard. Which, again, by the way, is even more depressing when you remember that this is the same company that gave us Be Prepared. Ugh, 0 out of 10 needs more goose-stepping hyenas. King Magnifico, like I said earlier, is Robert Callahan. He starts off as one character at the beginning of the movie, and then at some point in the movie turns on a dime and becomes an evil monster. It's not convincing, it's not natural, and instead it's just contrived and forced. The only thing that has anything going for it, and actually makes it somewhat better than Robert Callahan, is just the fact that he is played by Chris Pine. And really, you can hear Chris in the recording booth actually trying to do the best he can with what he's been given. It's just unfortunate that what he's been given has been written by a 3-year-old. And hey, if you want one more serving of terrible disappointment, allow me to remind you that Wish was supposed to be the first movie where both the king and the queen would be evil, making them Disney's first evil villain couple.
A true love's kiss.
And finally, we've come to him. God, I hate him. Prince Hans is arguably the character that most popularized this trope in the beginning. Again, everybody can see what Disney's trying to do with this character and the way they've written him, but that doesn't mean what they have written for Prince Hans is any good. Again, when a lot of these characters snap and turn on a dime, they do so very quickly. And that continues here with Prince Hans. But really, what Disney didn't realise with a lot of these early twist villains is that their turn has to be measured. And for their turn to make sense and be convincing, it has to be measured correctly. But Hans is one of those villains where it wasn't measured correctly. Which means that when he turns, he throws out his past characterization completely and automatically becomes a murderous monster. And really, the biggest crux of these characters is just that their turns aren't written to be in line with their previous characterizations. And yes, as we go on with the rest of this video and we get to some of the higher ranked characters, you'll see what I mean. Because the characters that have been ranked the highest on this list have been written to have their turns be in line with their previous characterizations. And lastly, something else that really doesn't help Prince Hans as a character is just the fact that he's really super boring. Seriously, anytime anybody talks about Frozen as a film, they often talk about the movie in terms of its animation and its songs. But when it comes to the film's villain and story, those are often the aspects that get left behind in conversation. Because of course, who wouldn't want to talk about the pretty visuals and cute sounding songs over the boring villain?
I framed Lionheart. I can frame you too.
Ugh, I forgot Dawn Bellweather was on this list. I know I said earlier that Robert Callahan has to be the best example for how to not write a surprise villain, but Dawn Bellweather? Yeah, she's pretty high up there as well. And again, Dawn Bellweather is another one of those characters who appears once at the very beginning of the movie, once when the characters need her, and then again at the very end of the movie when the movie remembers that it needs a villain. And of course, I know that with a movie like Zootopia, which is a police procedural movie, you of course want to have a mysterious villain. But again, there is a difference between having a mysterious cloaked hooded villain and not having a villain at all. Which is how this movie operates for 2/3 of its runtime. Something that also doesn't help Dawn Bellweather as a character is just the fact that once she's revealed as the movie's villain, she's one of the most cliche thing I've ever seen. And really, the best frame of reference I can give you for Dawn Bellweather is the fact that in Zootopia 1, she's probably the worst part of the movie, but in Zootopia 2, she's nowhere near being the best part of the movie, but she is still far better than she was in Zootopia 1. So again, if you're going to write a surprise villain for anything, do not take any inspiration from Robert Callahan or Dawn Bellweather.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I might be cheating with this next one, because really you could make a case that arguably Tefiti is not a surprise villain. But in saying that, she does turn into a really cool lava monster at the end of the movie. And you know, that's cool. Like, come on. She's automatically one of the coolest looking villains on this list so far. But really, as I've said earlier, you could make an arguable case for the fact that Tefiti might not be a surprise villain. But still, this is my list, so hey ho, she's a surprise villain. And really, this character is just as high on this list as she is, because I like the way that the movie resolves everything with her in the end. And no, I have no idea whether or not what Disney's written here is actually in line with any actual Polynesian beliefs. But still, what I can say is that it seems perfectly harmless as it is. So yeah, Tefiti might be arguable as a villain, but she is still a really cool looking lava monster.
Wait, was this woman scary beyond all reason?
Oh yeah.
That's Yzma and Kronk. I'm saved.
Okay, now we're getting into the good ones. And yes, I know that some people in the comments are going to be arguing with me as to whether or not Yzma actually counts as a surprise villain. But I will argue that she is, because of course she does blurt out her entire plan to Kronk and Kuzco. And Kuzco is pretty surprised by the fact that she would actually want to kill him. Which, you know, doesn't come as a surprise to basically anybody else on Earth, but Kuzco? He's pretty surprised in the moment.
If you hadn't mixed up those poisons, Cusco would be dead now. There'd be no more diversions until we track that llama down and kill him.
And really, I've just got to say that Eartha Kitt does so well as Yzma in this movie. Yzma is a riot, particularly her and Kronk. They're both hilarious in this movie. And really, I think they're about as great as they are because of their great performances from Eartha Kitt and Patrick Warburton. And really, outside of the great performances we get from the voice actors, the character animation for these two characters is also pretty brilliant. Really, the character acting, the performances, and the story go hand in hand to create something that's just really pretty great here. The Emperor's New Groove is a movie that I've always loved and found pretty hilarious. But really, outside of that, it's also a movie that I can say I love because it has a great twist villain.
They all hated me.
And now we're getting to Doris. Doris is fine. She's a perfectly serviceable twist villain. She's decently menacing, she has some cool looking shots, and she looks pretty evil. Her backstory as written and portrayed in the movie is also pretty fine, and really she's only ranked above Yzma just because she is a bit more outwardly threatening. And really, another reason why I have her ranked above Yzma is just due to the fact that it's not so easy to debate whether or not she is actually a twist villain. Doris is a blatant villain, and honestly, her partnership with the bowler hat guy makes that pretty evident. And yes, her partnership with the bowler hat guy is probably the most entertaining part of the movie. But still, unfortunately for everybody, this character is mute, which does make it slightly harder to actually be entertained by her. But still, for what she is a decent twist villain. Mother Gothel is another decent twist villain, although the way that she is portrayed in the movie does make it arguable to say whether or not she is actually a twist villain. But really, when it comes to me and Tangled, I do think that you can make a pretty good case for saying that she is actually a twist villain. Again, she has plenty of the hallmarks of being a twist villain, where she disappears for the majority of the story, she comes back, she turns on a dime and her characterization seems to change. But really, with the way that those hallmarks are presented, I do think you could make a case for her being one of the more fleshed out twist villains. It also helps that Mother Gothel is part of a pretty famous fairy tale, which clues us into what sort of character we're about to get. Something that also helps to really deepen Mother Gothel's character has to be her relationship with Rapunzel. And really, these two characters do get to spend a good chunk of the movie together, which really allows us to see the bond between the two and see what sort of story is coming from their relationship. And lastly, something that I really think helps Mother Gothel is just the way that she has the mixture of being both a surprise twist villain as well as just one of Disney's older legacy blatant villains. And what I mean by that is that Mother Gothel does have some of the hallmarks of being a twist villain, whilst also having some of the hallmarks of being one of Disney's more traditional villains. I mean, seriously, once we get the twist and we see Mother Gothel actually become the sort of traditional villain that Disney is known for, the movie gets pretty entertaining. King Candy. Okay, we're now at a point where if you're writing a twist villain, you can start taking notes. King Candy has a lot of the hallmarks of being a traditional Disney villain. He's selfish, he's menacing, and he's manipulative. He has some great thematic connections to our main characters, and he has his own pretty interesting backstory. Really, the only thing that holds King Candy back as a character is his lack of screen time. Again, King Candy is one of those characters who is pretty absent for the majority of the movie, right up until the third act, which honestly is my biggest problem with not only the character but also the movie. And really, I go backward and forth on whether or not Wreck-It Ralph could actually work as a movie if it didn't have King Candy. But still, for what it is and for what we got, I think it's pretty good. King Candy is a well-written villain, and he's a character who really works well with both the plot and the characters of Wreck-It Ralph. And because of that, he's got to be one of the best characters on this list. But he's not the best.
It's called a hustle, sweetheart.
Yes, Pawbert Linksley is my number one pick for Disney's best twist villain. And yes, I know that might come as a surprise to some people. But really, Zootopia 2 doesn't work as a movie without Pawbert as a character. And really, something else I love about this character is that he's not written to just be a blatant villain once he turns. Instead, he's written to be an antagonist. After his turn, he still holds on to a lot of his previous characterization, and that previous characterization informs a lot of his decisions and influences a lot of the choices he makes. And you can see all of that in the way that he's written and the way he's acted, as well as the way that he's animated. It's almost as if Disney has taken a lot of the best parts of some of these previous villains and combined them into one character. And another great thing about Pawbert as a character is that he allows the true villain, his father Milton, to actually lie in the background. But still, even though that character is in the background, you can see how he has influenced characters like Pawbert. There are even some moments throughout the movie where it's almost as if Milton is actually talking through Pawbert. And it's these details that build up to something else that makes Pawbert a great character. And that is his potential for change and redemption. Pawbert as a character spends the entirety of Zootopia 2 desperate for the one thing that his father has constantly denied him: love. And in the very end of the movie, where Pawbert has failed and his father has turned away from him, Pawbert continues to read the book that Nick and Judy left him with, their Partnerships for Dummies. And even though Milton shows his disgust to the idea, Pawbert continues to read the book.
Look inside yourself and recognize that change starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with all of us.
The director of Zootopia 2, Jared Bush, was asked the question of whether or not Pawbert could be redeemed. And in his response, Jared Bush said that the answer to that question would be very subjective. as well as saying that Pawbert did also get pretty murdery, and that is also true. But really, I'm still hopeful for Pawbert as a character because I've seen a lot of similarities between him and Zuko. Pawbert and Zuko were both characters who were desperate for their father's love and approval. And yes, both of them did also get pretty murdery in trying to achieve it. But still, even in saying that, Zuko was eventually redeemed. And just personally, I'm someone who always believes that everybody deserves a second chance. Honestly, I am someone who believes that everybody deserves a chance at redemption as a basic right. The only thing that really matters is how much someone actually wants to change. And with Pawbert as a character, I do think that the potential is there for that sort of change. And I think it would be really interesting to see if Pawbert and Disney actually wanted to change. And that is my list for the best and worst Disney twist villains. Please, everybody, leave me a comment in the comment section down below telling me what you thought about this list. Tell me which Disney twist villains you love and you hate, and also, please don't forget to do all the usual YouTube stuff, like, subscribe and comment. I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.